In many parts of Africa, people say there are two things you should never hand over completely without wisdom: your name and your labor. Because once someone takes your name, they begin to speak in your place. And once someone takes your labor, they begin to live in comfort from the sweat that was meant to build your own future. This is the story of a woman who gave a man both. She gave him her youth, her trust, her loyalty. And then, from a cold foreign land, she gave him the money she earned through sacrifice. But when she finally returned home, the door to the house she had paid for was opened by another woman. Her name was Amara. Ever since high school, everyone had known her and Tendaji as one. They were the couple people pointed at whenever they wanted to talk about loyalty. Back when love was simple, they walked home together after school, shared dreams under dusty evening skies, and promised each other a future that seemed unbreakable. Other relationships around them came and went, but theirs survived the years. It survived family pressure, financial struggles, disappointment, and distance. People used to say that if patience and faithfulness had a face, it would look like Amara and Tendaji. As the years passed, their bond seemed to grow stronger. Tendaji paid the traditional bride price, and in Amara's heart, that was enough to make her feel like a wife. There was no grand wedding, no expensive ceremony, no white dress, no glittering celebration. But she believed in the meaning of what had been done. She believed she belonged to him, and he belonged to her. Tendaji worked as a customs officer and earned a decent salary, enough to be respected, but not enough to build the kind of future they dreamed about. Amara, however, wanted more than survival. She wanted a life that would be secure, dignified, and lasting. Then one day, an opportunity came for her to travel to Germany for work. At first, the plan was for both of them to go, but life had other ideas. Delays came. Paperwork became complicated. Time passed, and eventually they agreed that Amara would go first. She would work there, save money, and send it home. Tendaji would remain in Cameroon and manage their investments. He would supervise the construction projects, handle the business registrations, buy land, and make sure everything was growing in the right direction. He told her, "You just work and trust me. I'll take care of everything here." And because she loved him deeply, she did. Germany was not kind to her in the beginning. The cold felt cruel. The streets felt unfamiliar. The language around her sounded distant and hard. She missed home, her family, the warmth of familiar voices, the comfort of food cooked with love, and the feeling of belonging. But she endured it all because she believed she was building something meaningful. She woke up early, worked long hours, saved aggressively, and denied herself the comforts she could have enjoyed. She did not waste money on luxury. She did not spend carelessly. Every euro had a purpose. Every sacrifice had a destination. A house, land, shops, rentals, a restaurant, a future. Month after month, she sent money to Tendaji. Sometimes a few €100, sometimes much more. Whenever she was able to work extra hours, she sent even more. And every time she sent money, Tendaji had good news waiting for her. He would say the foundation had been laid. He would say the walls were going up. He would say the roofing was nearly done. Sometimes he would say a good opportunity had come up to buy another plot of land. Sometimes he said it was time to invest in a clothing shop, a grocery store, furnished rental apartments, or even a restaurant. He always sounded certain. He always sounded grateful. He always spoke like a man who was faithfully building the future they had planned together. He sent her photos. He sent her photocopies of documents. He sent her voice notes from construction sites, and sometimes she could hear the noise of workers in the background. He would say things like, "I'm standing in our house right now," and those words would keep her warm through the harshest winter nights. She carried those dreams like a fire inside her. When people asked her why she worked so hard, she would smile and say, "I'm not suffering, I'm building." Years passed like this. The villa rose in pictures. The businesses expanded in stories. The dreams seemed to be coming true. A clothing shop, a grocery store, a restaurant. furnished rentals, land, furniture, more plans, more expansion, more promises. To anyone listening, it sounded like a success story. It sounded like a couple making wise choices across distance. It sounded like the reward of faithfulness. But there were signs, small signs, that today Amara would later wish she had not ignored. Sometimes Tendaji avoided video calls. Sometimes he said the network was bad. Sometimes he delayed updates until she asked several times. Whenever she requested original documents, he told her not to worry, that the originals were safe and that everything was under control. And because she had known him for nearly 25 years, she chose trust over suspicion. After all, how do you interrogate someone who knows your childhood stories? How do you doubt someone you have loved since you were young? How do you suspect the very person with whom you have already imagined growing old? For the last 2 years, Amara had tried to return home, but each attempt failed. Work complications, travel issues, paperwork delays, financial obligations, and unexpected obstacles kept getting in the way. Still, something in her spirit had begun to feel unsettled. It was not enough to make her accuse him of anything, but it was enough to make her restless. And whenever she spoke about returning, Tendaji seemed strangely cautious. He always asked too many questions. Exactly when are you coming? What day? What time? Shouldn't you wait a little longer? At the time, she tried not to read too much into it. She told herself he was just trying to prepare. But eventually, she decided she would tell no one the exact date. She wanted to surprise him. In her mind, she had imagined that moment many times. He would open the gate and freeze in shock. Then his face would light up with joy. He would pull her into his arms. He would show her around the villa they had built together. They would walk through every room, laughing at how far they had come. She would finally see the businesses, the rentals, the restaurant, the fruits of all those years of sacrifice. After so much cold, so much labor, so much waiting, she would finally step into the warmth of the life she had paid for. So she packed her bags and returned to Cameroon. She kept quiet about it. She went straight to the villa, the one she had watched rise from afar through photos and promises. Standing at the gate, tired from travel but full of anticipation, she knocked. The gate opened, and it was not Tendaji standing there. It was a woman, a stranger. Before Amara could even process what she was seeing, 2 children appeared behind the woman, a boy and a girl, and in the next moment they ran past her toward a man inside, toward Tendaji. They wrapped their arms around him with the easy affection children reserve for a father they know well. In that instant, the world shifted beneath Amara's feet. Nothing made sense. She looked at the children, then at the woman, then at Tendaji, and then at the house behind them. It was the same house from the photos, the same house she had paid for, the same house she had imagined in her dreams. Yet somehow, she was the one standing there like an intruder. Trying to hold herself together, she looked at the woman and said, "There must be a mistake. I am the owner of this house." The woman looked at her calmly, without confusion and without fear, and replied, "No, you are the one who is mistaken. I am the woman of this house. I live here with my husband." Amara felt the blood drain from her body. She said Tendaji's full name. The woman confirmed it. She named his profession. The woman said yes. She named his place of work. Again, the answer was yes. Each confirmation struck her like a blow. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not a temporary arrangement. This was a whole life, a whole family, a whole reality built in secret, inside the very house Amara had financed. Something broke inside her. Her voice rose. The woman's voice rose. Neighbors began to gather. Confusion turned into shouting, and shouting turned into chaos. Then came the humiliation. A fight broke out. In front of the neighborhood, under the eyes of strangers and whispers of onlookers, Amara was beaten. Beaten by the woman standing in the life she had paid for, while the man who should have spoken truth remained there in silence. The house she had built for love had become the stage of her public humiliation. Covered in dust and shame, she left and returned to her parents' home. But what hurt more than the dust on her clothes was the humiliation in her chest. She could barely explain what had happened. How could she tell her family that the man she had trusted with her life had used her money to build a home for another woman? How could she describe the moment children ran to embrace him in the house she had built? How could she admit that after all her years of loyalty, she had been made to look like a stranger at her own gate? She waited for his call. Surely he would call. Surely he would explain. Surely he would apologize. But her phone remained silent. No message, no remorse, no panic. That silence said more than any confession could have. A man who fears losing you does not remain quiet after destroying you. Only a man who has already replaced you sleeps peacefully while you cry. For 3 days, Amara shut herself away. People came with advice. Some told her to go to the police. Some told her to gather proof and expose him. Others told her to seek legal action, to make noise, to fight. But she was too shattered to think clearly. She was not ready to plan justice. She was still trying to breathe inside the pain. On the 3rd night, something changed. The grief had not lessened, but it had sharpened. She realized that if answers were not coming to her, she would have to go and confront the truth directly. So on Sunday at 4 in the morning, before dawn had fully arrived, she drove back to the villa. This time, Tendaji himself opened the gate. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. Years of memories stood between them like smoke. School days, promises, sacrifices, late-night phone calls, future plans. Everything hung there, fragile and unreal. But there was no warmth in his face, no embrace, no apology, only irritation, as though she had come to disturb his peace. She walked in anyway. And there it was, the villa in its full beauty. The polished floors, the carefully arranged furniture, the elegant curtains, the finished rooms. It was exactly the life she had imagined, exactly the life she had paid for. And yet it was not hers. That was the cruelty of it. To build something beautiful and arrive too late to discover that your name has been erased from it. She demanded answers. He responded with insults. He mocked her pain. He treated her not like a betrayed wife, but like a nuisance. Then came the documents, the originals. The land papers were not in her name. The house was not in her name. The furniture was not in her name. The businesses were not in her name. Everything was registered in the other woman's name. The copies he had sent Amara over the years had been just that, copies crafted to keep her calm and keep the money flowing. The truth had been hidden in the originals all along. This was not a mistake. This was not confusion. This was planning. It had taken years to do this. Every transfer she had made had been used to build a life carefully arranged to exclude her. The villa, the shops, the rentals, the restaurant, everything she had paid for had been handed over legally to another woman. And as if the theft itself were not enough, Tendaji insulted her, humiliated her, and spoke as though her sacrifices meant nothing. What hurt her even more was the thought of their child. While he had built a comfortable secret life with another woman, their own child had been sent away to his mother's village. The resources that could have secured her own child's future had been used to raise another household in comfort. In that moment, Amara realized this was no longer just a story of betrayal between lovers. It was theft from a mother, theft from a child, theft of dignity, time, and inheritance. She left that house in a daze, got into her car, and drove without direction. She could not understand how a man she had loved since school, a man with whom she had planned a whole life, could strip her of everything with such coldness. She replayed memories in her mind. His early tenderness, his reassuring words, his affectionate messages whenever she sent money, his excuses whenever she asked too many questions. Slowly, the truth emerged. He had not simply lied. He had managed her trust. He had used history as a weapon, love as a disguise, and loyalty as an opening through which he could take everything. When she finally pulled over and cried alone in her car, she cried not only for the money and property she had lost, but for the version of herself that had believed so completely. She cried for the years spent working in foreign cold. She cried for the home she had built but never lived in. She cried for the child who had been pushed aside. She cried for the illusion that had died at that gate. Back at her parents' home, the elders gathered around her. One elderly woman told her, "My daughter, he did not only deceive you, he studied your trust and used it like a door." Another told her, "Do not die before you are buried. You are still alive." Her mother took her hand and said, "They have already taken your tears. Do not hand them your future, too." Those words began to wake something inside her. For the first time since her return, she began to think not only like a wounded woman, but like someone who could still act. She started going through old messages, bank transfers, receipts, photos, and voice notes. She wrote down dates, amounts, projects, promises, names, and details. She began to see patterns she had once ignored. Whenever she sent large sums, Tendaji became extra loving. Whenever she asked for accountability, he became vague. Whenever she asked for originals, he delayed. Whenever she talked about returning unexpectedly, he seemed nervous. The architecture of betrayal had always been there in fragments. She simply had not wanted to see it. But now she understood something important. This had not happened because she was foolish. It had happened because she had loved honestly in the hands of someone dishonest. That truth mattered. Because shame tells a woman she was stupid. Wisdom tells her she was targeted through trust. And once she understood that, she stopped hating herself. Amara also began to think about the other woman. At first, all she felt was rage. But later she wondered what that woman had been told. Had Tendaji lied to her too? Had he created a false story about Amara? Or had she known everything and chosen comfort over conscience? Amara did not know. But one thing was clear. The true architect of the destruction was Tendaji. Men like him often let women fight each other while they sit behind the damage they created. Whether the other woman was innocent, complicit, or somewhere in between, he had built the stage and assigned the roles. On the 6th day, Amara stepped out of her room with a notebook in her hand. Her family noticed the difference immediately. The pain was still there, but now it had direction. She was no longer just mourning. She was gathering herself. She was counting what remained. She was building something new, not a house this time, but a response, a record, a case, a future that would no longer depend on blind trust. That evening, she sat beside her mother as the sun went down, and for the first time since arriving home, she spoke not only about what had happened, but about what came next. "If I do nothing," she said, "he keeps everything." Her mother nodded. "If I speak, people will talk." Her mother nodded again. "Even if I get something back, I can never recover those years." Her mother squeezed her hand and said, "No, but you can stop him from stealing the years ahead." That was the moment Amara understood the deepest lesson of all. Betrayal had taken her money, her property, and many years of trust. But it did not have to take the rest of her life. She was still alive, still standing, still capable of rebuilding. The gate that had once seemed like the end of everything was beginning to reveal itself as something else. The place where illusion died and truth finally entered. So if you are listening to this story with tears in your eyes because someone used your love against you, hear this clearly. You are not worthless because you were deceived. You are not foolish because you trusted. And you are not finished because one chapter of your life ended in humiliation. Gather yourself. Gather your truth. Gather your name. And never again allow anyone to feast on the bread baked by your suffering while calling your silence patience. Because love should never leave you homeless in the house you built. And any man who turns your sacrifice into another woman's comfort does not deserve your loyalty. He deserves your absence, your truth, and the strength you find the day you finally choose yourself over the ruins he created. In the end, Amara learned what many women learn too late. Do not only build with love, build with wisdom. Do not only trust promises, Trust proof. Do not hand over your labor to someone who has not shown you the shape of their hands. A heart can heal. A future can be rebuilt. And a woman who rises after betrayal often becomes stronger than the person who tried to break her. Some gates are not meant to welcome you home. Some gates are meant to show you exactly where you must never beg to enter again.